Hello everyone. So from today we are going to start with optical fiber communication. Here in this presentation I have attached a pre-recorded audio clip with each slide so that you all can understand what I want to convey through a particular slide. So this is my first attempt at doing this. So let us see how much success we get in this. So let us start. When we talk about communication, the first thing that comes to our mind is the transfer of information from one point to another. And for this transfer, what we need is a communication system. So, what does that communication system actually do? So, we have an information signal. For example, the information signal may be an audio or a video, or it might be simply a text signal, text message that we need to send. So this piece of information is superimposed on a modulating wave which acts as a carrier for this information signal. So this modulated carrier is then transferred to required destination where it is received and original information signal is obtained by the process which we call demodulation. So basically this is the idea about any communication system. So we are going to learn a new type of communication system, that is the optical fiber communication system. Now what is this optical fiber communication system? It is a wired communication and it uses light as the medium of transmission. Also, it is the most advanced or the most latest technology that is used or which is developed in the field of communication. So let us start and understand how this optical fiber communication works. When the communication started, only voice signal transmission using an electrical signal was used or it was needed. As the time progressed, more and more people wanted to communicate from one point to another, as a result of which there was a need for larger and larger bandwidth. History of communication tells us that the need of frequency has increased from audio frequency to higher and higher level. If we see this electromagnetic spectrum, then we notice that the wavelength starts from 10 meters to 1 meter to 10 centimeter, 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter, 0.1 millimeter to 10 micrometer, 1 micrometer and 0.1 micrometer. And the corresponding frequencies are 30 megahertz, 300 megahertz, 3 gigahertz up to few terahertz till 3000 terahertz. So initially when the communication started, the frequency that was needed or that was used was few kilohertz. Then it increased to few megahertz, gigahertz and then so on. But why this happened? Before we answer this, let us ask what are the entities that we need for a good communication. The first one is the very good signal to noise ratio. Signal to noise ratio is nothing but the ratio of power of signal to the ratio of power of noise. So from this formula we can notice that increasing the signal power increases the signal to noise ratio. So if we have a system which has low noise and if we transmit a signal from transmitter and we receive it at the receiver, then we notice that the power of the signal or the amplitude of the signal that is received is higher. So as a result of which the signal to noise ratio is also higher. So for a good communication system, the first thing that I need is I should have a system which is having very low noise. The second thing is the bandwidth. Let us take an example. If I want to send an audio signal, then I will need a bandwidth of say 4 kilohertz. After doing sampling, I will need the bandwidth say 64 kilohertz. So now if two people wants to communicate simultaneously, then the bandwidth required will be the double of 64 kilohertz. So if we want more and more people to communicate, then the need for bandwidth is higher and higher. So in short, we can say that we need a larger bandwidth for a good communication system. Since the bandwidth of the system is directly proportional to the frequency of operation, the use of higher and higher frequency facilitates larger bandwidth. So to summarize, for a good communication system, what we need is a very good signal to noise ratio. That means we need low noise. And the second thing that we need is a very good bandwidth. The need of bandwidth is never ending. When the communication started, we started with the lower frequencies. As the demand for bandwidth increased, we increased the frequency to higher and higher level. In the early part of last century, the communication started with the frequency in megahertz. The medium that time used was the coaxial cable. As you can see in the image, the coaxial cable has a center conductor which may be a copper, and it is surrounded by a dielectric material, and the dielectric material is surrounded by outer metallic layer for the protection. So the loss in such kind of cables was around 20 dBs per kilometer. So per kilometer there was a signal loss of 20 dBs. When the need for the frequencies started increasing further, the coaxial cables proved to be inadequate and lossy, and thereby giving rise to for a need to search or find for another medium, and that another medium was called as waveguides. So the next type of medium that was used was waveguides. Waveguides are basically hollow structures which guide the electromagnetic energy from one point to another through them. The operating frequency up till which these waveguides could function quite well was a few hundred gigahertz. But as the operating frequency further increased to more than a few hundred gigahertz, then it was found that this medium was inadequate, as there was no supporting electronic circuitry available at that time that could operate at such high frequencies. This medium started giving a high loss in the information signal at such high frequencies. As a result, there was a strong need for a search of another alternative. Another type of transmission medium used was a microwave link. This link is called microwave link because the operating frequency lie in the microwave range, which is about a few hundred megahertz, and it can be used for long distance communication. This link was a wireless medium of communication, and it was point to point. The signal from one antenna travels along the line of sight to antenna 2 in the form of electromagnetic waves and vice versa. The only disadvantage of this type of system was the signal transmitted in the line of sight, or the signal transmitted in a straight line, because for a directional antenna the radiation is almost along a straight line. Also, there was one more disadvantage, that for such communication medium there was a need for the antenna to be mounted at high altitudes because of the curvature of the earth. But for a reliable communication, this is one of the best options which has a very large bandwidth. Another very effective medium of transmission was the satellite communication. In this satellite communication, as we have seen in the previous modules, the information signal to be transmitted is first sent to the Earth station. From Earth station, the signal is sent to the satellite, which acts like a repeater, and the signal is sent back on the Earth to the destination Earth station, wherein the signal is then redirected to the destination device. So this is basically used in broadcast applications like radio and television broadcasts. This is point-to-point communication as well as point-to-multipoint communication. Satellite communication has lots of advantages, but one of the biggest disadvantage of such kind of communication is the lifetime of this system. The lifetime of the satellite itself is hardly 7 to 8 years, as a result of which there was a strong need to search for an alternative medium which was lossless, which also could operate at a very high frequency and could give us a very large bandwidth. So, the scientists started searching for an alternative communication medium which was used by the physicists at that time, which we call as the optical window. So this optical communication started in late 60s. The two questions that arose at that point of time were, if we want to transmit light from one point to another, then do we have any proper medium to do so? And the second question was, what kind of light source can be used for such type of transmission? Answer to these questions are very simple. If we just look around us, we see that the light from the sun travels millions and millions of kilometers to reach the earth's surface. So we can say that the air is a good medium for the transmission of light. But however, if you take a 100 watts bulb and if you just keep it on a terrace and if you go just a kilometer away, you can see the bulb. You go 10 kilometers away, you might be able to see the bulb still. But if we go beyond that, practically we will not be able to even see the bulb. So the air as the medium is not that transparent as we think, as a result of which it cannot be used as the medium. Because in such transmission, we are not just talking about few kilometers, but a few hundred kilometers to few thousands of kilometers. So there is a need to search for a proper medium for transmission of light from one point to another. The next option that was in the list for the medium was the glass, which also appeared to be very transparent medium, and it was already used in the laboratory experiments to carry the light. But it was found that this glass had a very high attenuation of about 1000 dBs per kilometers. After the research, scientists found that this loss in the glass was not because of the intrinsic nature of the glass, but it was due to the impurities present in the glass. These impurities were not cleared at that time for performing the laboratory experiments because their presence was not that harmful for the results of the experiments in the laboratory at that time. But as soon as this was realized, the purification of the glass started. And after this purification, in the first experiment itself, it was found that a pure glass as the medium, the loss reduced from 1000 dBs per kilometers to just 20 dBs per kilometer. This was a great success in this field because the other alternatives that were present at that time for communication, that is the coaxial cable and the waveguides, also had similar loss. But one biggest plus point of this optical communication was that it gave us a very large bandwidth. This was the main point for choosing the optical communication as the medium. Later on, this glass was molded into what we call now as the optical fibers, which is now used and which we are going to see how it is used in this optical fiber communication system. Note that this slide is a continuation of previous slide. Now, the second question was that do we have a light source which can carry the information on them? This question was unimportant because we see light everywhere. We have bulbs, tube lights, etc. So can I use the light bulb for carrying information on that? Carrier carries information when it has some variation in its characteristics, that is either in frequency or time. That means if I have a light source whose amplitude doesn't change with time, whose frequency doesn't change with time, then this source doesn't carry any information. So does the bulb exhibit such property? It was seen that if I want to switch the bulb on and off, then it cannot be done fast enough. Switching the bulb on and off was at the rate of few cycles. So if I want to vary my light source at a very high rate, then bulb was not useful. It was found that the rate at which the light sources can be put on and off depends on the spectral width of the light source. For example, the white light. It has a large spectral width as it goes from red to blue. Such sources cannot be switched on and off at a very fast rate. So now we need an optical source whose spectral width is as narrow as possible. For example, a laser. It happened to be that when optical fibers were invented, the laser source was not invented. Luckily, later on it happened that soon the laser source was invented. So finally we got the solution for the second question. So the laser was used as the light source for the optical fiber communication. So the invention of optical fiber, which was used as the medium, and the laser, which was used as the light source, practically made optical fiber communication possible. This was in brief about the history of optical fiber communication. So if you ask how an optical communication link looks like, then here it is. So like any other communication system, there are three parts. First one is the transmitter module, second one is the receiver module, and to connect the two we are having the transmission medium. So if you see this, the transmitter module, you can see an electrical signal input that is fed to the drive circuit. This drive circuit drives the light source, which is usually a laser source. So the output of that light source is basically the signature of the electrical signal input. So that signal, the output of the light source, is then given as the input to the optical fiber cable. The red one, the red channel that you can see in this image is the optical fiber cable. So the output of the light source is fed to this fiber cable and the light passes through this cable. Like any other communication system, if there is any loss in the signal, then we include a regenerator module. So here also we are having this regenerator module wherein the light source is received by the optical receiver. The electronic circuitry will amplify back the signal and this signal will be output again to the fiber cable through the optical transmitter, as you can see in the image. So the optical transmitter retransmits the optical signal and then it goes to the optical receiver module. In this optical receiver module, the photodetector detects the signal, then it is given to the amplifier to amplify, because again there is some loss in the signal, and after amplifying we need to clean the signal because there is a lot of distortion or addition of some noise in the signal. So as a result we need to clean the signal. So we use this signal restorer to clean our signal, and finally we get the electrical signal output. As you all can see one more block here in this diagram, that is optical coupler or beam splitter. So if you want to transmit your data to some other destination, then you can split the signal and then you can send it to the other location or to other equipment if you all want to. So this is how basic model of an optical communication link looks like. So this is in short the explanation of the basic model of an optical communication link. You all need to elaborate it more from exam point of view. So now in this advanced communication subject, we have already seen about the satellite communication in the first and second module, and now we are going to see about the optical fiber communication. So here in brief I have mentioned few points about the comparison of the two modes of communication systems, that is the satellite and optical fiber communication. Please go through them. All the points are mentioned. So these are some of the advantages of optical fiber communication. All the points are elaborated, so please go through them. These are some more advantages of OFC. Please go through. So these are some disadvantages of OFC. Let us see them. First one is the high initial installation cost. So it is very costly to install this optical fiber communication. Maintenance and repairing also is costly. Joining and testing process requires skilled manpower. Anyone cannot just go and join this fiber cables if you need to extend the fiber cable, etc. Also, this tensile stresses is a very important point, as we have seen while performing the experiments also. If the wire gets bent, or if the optical cable, that cable if it gets bent, then there is a possibility that the transmission of the light will be stopped at that point. So this is very important, tensile stress. Optical fiber communication has applications in almost every field, like telecommunications, space applications, medical applications, military applications, the sensors. I have listed all of them. Please go through them. Here are some more applications that I have mentioned. Kindly elaborate all these points if any question is asked in the exam. So out of the electromagnetic spectrum, we use this infrared, visible and ultraviolet spectrum, or the part of the spectrum. We use it in optical fiber communication. Here I have listed all the points, important points, its frequency, wavelength, then the loss that they carry, and also where it is used, the applications. So just please go through them. This is for your information. So this slide tells us about the history of attenuation and also the generations in this optical fiber communication. So from the graph you all can see that on the x-axis lies the wavelength and on the y-axis lies the attenuation, that is dB per kilometer. So in the first window you can see that the loss is minimum at the wavelength of 800, around 800 to 850 nanometers, and the loss was 4 dBs per kilometer. So, and in the second window you all can notice, that is the second generation, you all can notice that the loss gone down to 0.5 dBs per kilometers, and the wavelength at that point was 1300 nanometer. And in the third window you all can notice again that the loss has gone further down to 0.2 dBs per kilometers, and the wavelength is 1550 nanometers. So in general we can make out that the loss in the fiber optic cable is minimum when the wavelength of the light we select is either 1300 nanometer or 1550 nanometer. Now the next thing that we know is how to characterize the light source. So there are four aspects: intensity, wavelength, spectral width and polarization. So now what is intensity? Intensity is the power of the light per unit solid angle. So for a given power, the light is confined to a narrow beam where the solid angle is very small, then the source will appear brighter. So this parameter tells me how focused the light is. So for a given power, if the light goes at a very wide angle like a bulb, then it will not appear as bright as laser would appear. Even a laser has small power, but that power comes in a very narrow cone, so it appears brighter as compared to the bulb. The next parameter is the wavelength, or in simple words, the color of the light. Let us say that this wavelength is some lambda. Depending on the loss performance, as we just saw in the previous slide, we can choose lambda as either 1300 nanometer or 1550 nanometer. So the choice of wavelength has a direct bearing on the loss performance of your optical communication system. The next parameter is the spectral width. It is the wavelength range over which the emission takes place. So the spectral width is something like the purity of the color. So if I have a wide spectral range, then I will have a light which will look like a white light. If I reduce the bandwidth to a smaller region, say around red, then I will get a sharp red color. If I reduce the wavelength to the yellow, then I will get a sharp yellow color. So reducing the wavelength improves the purity of color. This is very important parameter, as we will see that it is directly related to the data rate of transmission. Smaller the spectral width, higher is the data rate of the system. So the wavelength, intensity and spectral width of the light source treat light as the energy source. Know where the wave nature of light comes into picture. However, when we talk about the propagation light inside a fiber, we cannot treat light as the energy source. It has to be treated like an electromagnetic wave. And if the medium is very large, larger as compared to the wavelength of light, then we treat the light as transverse electromagnetic wave. If the light is moving in one direction, the light is transverse electromagnetic. That means it has electric and magnetic components which are perpendicular to each other, and these components are in turn perpendicular to the direction of propagation of wave, as we have learnt by the right hand thumb rule. So magnitude of E by H is equal to eta, which is intrinsic impedance, which is given by the square root of permeability to the permittivity of the medium. So if I treat light as a transverse electromagnetic wave, then I should at least observe the behavior of E, that is electric field. Once I know E, I can always find H because it is always perpendicular to E. This behavior of light as a function of time, that means the way the electric field behaves as the function of time, that is called the polarization of light. The tip of the electric field vector draw a particular shape as the function of time, and that shape is called the state of polarization. So polarization is a parameter that captures the vector nature of light. So to revise, the first three factors, that is the intensity, wavelength and spectral width, they tell the scalar nature of the wave, and the polarization tells us the vector nature of the wave. You all can just go through this slide as well. It gives same thing, the characteristics of the light. These are some of the long wave and short wavelength spectral bands that are used in optical fiber cable. Now the next topic that we are going to see is the optical fiber cable structure. The red fiber that we had seen in the optical communication link block diagram few slides ago, now we are going to see what that fiber is made up of. So there are many layers, starting with the core, which is the innermost layer, then the cladding, and then there are some buffer jackets around the cladding, that is the silicon coating, some buffer jacket, some strengthening member, and finally the black polyurethane outer jacket. So now to begin with, let us start with the core. Core is a medium to transport optical data signals. It is made either of glass or plastic. Larger the core, more is the light coupled. And this fiber optic cable is sized according to its core diameter. Let us consider the refractive index of this core is N1. The layer which is outside the core, or the thin layer that surrounds the core, is called as cladding. Let us consider the refractive index of cladding as N2. If refractive index of core is N1 and refractive index of cladding is N2, then N1 is always greater than N2. Core and cladding combination guides the wave or guides the light over a long distance. Thickness of this cladding is around 1 to 2 wavelengths of light to be guided. What does this cladding do? It reduces the loss of light from the core into the surrounding air. It also reduces the scattering loss at the surface of the core, and it also protects the fiber from absorbing surface. Now, this cladding is surrounded by some other buffer layers. These layers actually have no role in propagation of light. They are essentially there to provide the mechanical support to the glass fiber only. So the next layer outside the cladding is the coating. It is a silicone coating and it used to protect the optical fiber from any physical damage. It also protects the optical fiber from moisture. The next layer is the buffer jacket. It is an additional protection against abrasion or the shock. It is made up of either steel, fiberglass, plastic, yarn, etc. The next layer beyond the buffer jacket is the strengthening fibers. It increases the tensile strength. It protects core against crushing forces and excessive tension during installation. Then the next layer beyond the strengthening fibers and the last layer is the cable jacket. It is the outermost layer of the cable. It is mostly orange jacket, although some may be black or yellow. So this is how the structure of the fiber cable is. This is particularly the explanation of what we just learned about the optical fiber cable structure. This is also a continuation of the previous slide wherein we have explained the buffer layers around the cladding. So these are some of the questions from a semester point of view. I think all these topics are covered in this presentation. So you all can answer these questions easily. Our next topic will be ray optics. Thank you for watching this presentation. If you all have any doubts, you all can contact me. And also if any suggestions, they are welcome. Thank you.